All right, it is 6:30, and as the president is ill today, I am filling in, and we'll call the meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Cedarburg School Board, and is a public meeting. Prior notices have been placed in the district, and additional copies were forwarded to the city and town of Cedarburg, as well as the News Graphic and the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So you'll see some new faces here tonight, so I would like to welcome our newest board members, Connie Kincaid and Kate Erickson, to their first school board meeting. Connie and Kate were elected for a 3-year term and have already filed the oath of office. So welcome to Connie and Kate. The first item on the agenda is, because we have a new board, taking action regarding nominees for board officers. That's president, vice president, clerk, treasurer, and secretary. So at this time, I'll take nominations for president. And I'll nominate Rick Leach.
I'll second that.
Okay, do we have any other nominations?
I nominate myself.
I second that.
So who nominated Kate Erickson? Okay, so we've got two nominees, and when that's the case, I believe we do a secret ballot, and our secretary will come and deliver a paper, and we just write down which Rick or Kate Erickson, and she'll gather those up and tally them.
I have 4 votes for Mr. Leach and 2 votes for Ms. Erickson.
Thank you, Brenda. Do I have a nomination for vice president?
I'll nominate myself, Connie Kincaid.
I'll second.
I would nominate Dave Creer.
I'll second.
Are there any other nominations? All right, we've got the same situation, 2 nominees, and so we'll need the ballots again, Brenda.
I have 4 votes for Mr. Creer and 2 votes for Ms. Kincaid.
All right, thank you, Brenda. Next up, I'll take nominations for clerk.
I'll nominate myself, Connie Kincaid.
I'll second. I'll nominate Kate Netzel.
I'll second.
Any other nominations? All right, we have a same situation. Brenda, if you could
Yep.
bring the ballots for us, please.
Put 'em. I have 4 votes for Mrs. Netzel and 2 votes for Ms. Kincaid.
Thank you, Brenda. Next is treasurer.
I nominate Laura Strobel.
I would second that.
Any other nominations? All right, we've got one person nominated, Laura Strobel. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, so Laura would be the treasurer. And then district secretary, is that Brenda, right? Yeah, so if we have to, I'll nominate Brenda Roth. I always call you Brenda Rowland because, sorry. I know.
I will second that.
All right, any other nominations? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope, that passes. Okay, the next on the agenda is the board may take action regarding the 2023 to 24 school board and committee meeting calendar. This was included amongst the board doc material. Dr. Clark, do we need a, oh yeah, we need to take action on this, correct?
Correct.
Yep, okay. Anyone have any thoughts, comments, motions?
I have some points that I'd like clarification on.
Okay.
Before the board is the school board and committee meeting calendar. Many of the meetings occur on Wednesdays. There's a few dates that fall on a Thursday. One of them is June 13th, and I want to double check that that's meant to be. That's a curriculum meeting. There's also 2 meetings, curriculum and policy, that are, as of right now, as stated on what we were given, occurring at the same time on April 10th. So I'd like some clarification on the intention of whether that's at the same time or a different, an afternoon meeting and an evening meeting.
That's a good question.
We also have a buildings and grounds meeting that is currently listed as occurring on a Saturday. That's April 6th. And then a board meeting occurring on May 16th, which I'm wondering is meant to be May 15th, again, from the Thursdays to the Wednesdays for our general meetings. So I would like to hear clarification on that prior to voting yes to this as it's presented to us.
Okay.
My guess is the Buildings and Grounds meeting, which is actually listed under the month of March and has 4/6. I believe that should have been a 3. I think that was a typo on that one. So that should be March 6th. So again, if you take a look at Buildings and Grounds, the March meeting, that should be a 3/6.
Oh, yeah.
I believe so I'm going to take a look at the curriculum ones now, and Alan, saw you here somewhere. Okay, so the March 14th and the June 13th are Thursdays, or are we good with that?
Yeah, I'm fully good with that.
Okay. And then the other question, let's see, had to do with, well, two other questions. One question on the board meeting, May 16th, our board meetings are always on Wednesday. So I believe that should be a 5:15. So in May, for the board meetings, it should be a 5:15. And then the last one is a question about the policy committee meeting and the curriculum meeting on April 10th. My recommendation is move one of those to Thursday. Alan, are you okay with moving? Okay. So moving the April curriculum meeting to 4/11.
Okay.
So let me go back through those just in case. I'll start with the buildings and grounds. So under March, that should be March 6th, which is a Wednesday. Curriculum, if you go over to April, that should be April 11th, which is a Thursday. And then in the board meetings, May 15th, which is a which is a Wednesday.
Anyone else have any questions, concerns, comments? All right, thank you for those corrections, appreciate it. All right, so I'll take a motion to approve this as corrected.
All motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion carries. Okay, now we go to recognitions, state proclamations.
All right, the state of Wisconsin has issued the following proclamations. April 1st through 7th is the Week of the Young Child. April 1st through the 30th is School Library Month. April 1st through the 30th is also Month of the Military Child. And then we have May 7th through the 13th is Children's Mental Health Week. May 8th through the 12th, Teacher Appreciation Week. And May 10th, School Nurse Day.
All right. And those will be, the full proclamations will be posted on the website, correct? All right. Next up is, on recognitions, is that tonight we'd like to recognize our newest former board members, Hanny Malik and Kevin Kennedy. I understand Hanny was unable to make it today. He served on our board for the last year, and Mr. Kennedy served 6 3-year terms for a total of 18 years in service to our community on the board. So Kevin, why don't you come up? We have a plaque for you. This is to honor your service to the Board of Education. I'm going to step around. Okay. Yeah. All right, Kevin, this is for your guidance and direction as board member and strengthen the bond between our community and the school. Presented to you here in appreciation for years of service and dedication to the students, Cedarburg, and the community. Thank you. Thanks very much. And thank you for all the help and the guidance through the years. It's been phenomenal work. I enjoyed it. Yeah, enjoyed every minute. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's very nice of you. I've enjoyed the 16 years. It's a long time, but there's a lot of stuff that occurs. Seeing some of the old board members here and reminiscing about things, I'm like, oh my God, I forgot about that already. And so it's really a wonderful thing. It's a great honor to serve on the board. You're one of 7 people making major decisions for the district and for the community. And the schools are such an important part of our community that it's kind of like working at a big company in town or something like that. So I really enjoyed it. I wish you all the best going forward and keep us on the path we're on and the trajectory. I think it's, I look forward to your next accomplishments. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Chair.
Kevin. Thank you, Jeff. All right, Dr. Clark, Webster Professional Learning Communities.
All right, talking about some of the great accomplishments that have occurred in the Cedarburg School District. We have Tony DeRosa, middle school principal at Webster Middle School, to share some great news in terms of the middle school and his staff and the students there.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. Thank you, school board, for allowing me to be here this evening. And Kevin Kennedy, thank you for drawing in a record audience for the Webster presentation. Much appreciated. So we have a couple of recognitions that we've received in the last few years, and most recently it was the recognition of being a model PLC school, professional learning community school. And there's many years of work that goes into that, and so I'll summarize that work here tonight. When you look at becoming a PLC school, there's a lot of really huge pieces that have to get put together, and starting all the way back in 2013, 2015, before really beginning the actual PLC process, we knew we had to do some grading reform at Webster. And so as the staff, we read Myron Dweck's Grading Smarter, Not Harder, and looked at the latest research of best grading practices for middle school age students, and did a one-year book study as a team, researched other schools' grading policies, and our leadership team made a decision of what works best for us, and we've had that grading policy all the way up till this school year. We found it's worked very effectively in helping our students learn our essential standards and being responsible, but also with the ultimate goal of making sure students are learning. After that, we did a book study on transforming school culture by Anthony Muhammad, and this really is a self-reflection for staff members to understand what kind of staff member they are, but really mentally preparing our staff for the more monumental changes that we knew were on the horizon for us to continue our growth. And that next big change was redesigning our daily schedule. All the schools in the district, we worked with Dr. Michael Reddick, who is the scheduling guru in education. We went through a two-year process for redesigning our middle school schedule, with the key components doubling our math minutes from 45 minutes to 90 minutes, and then adding in our paw time, homeroom time, where we can service all students in a Tier 2 and Tier 3 service delivery model. Continuing our learning in 2018, we really put a big step forward in the solution tree trainings and going through the PLC process, and that started with our learning by doing book study, and this was led by our department leaders and involved every staff member in the building as we then prepared for our next step, which was redoing our mission and vision. It had been a number of years before as a staff that we really got together and determined what do we want a middle school experience to be. And as a staff and our leadership team worked through redesigning our mission and vision along with our shared beliefs and our pillars that drive what we do every single day. Once that was established, again, continuing our learning in the PLC model, we developed essential standards and common assessments. This is really a non-negotiable when you are looking at student achievement and making sure that students are learning exactly what we want them to. And through the PLC process and the learning by doing learning, you go through an actual tight process of evaluating all of the standards, and there are plenty of them, and it's nearly impossible to cover all Wisconsin standards in a school year. And so really going through a tight process with each department in determining what are the most essential standards, and then creating common assessments to measure our students' growth along those standards, and being able to determine who might be behind grade level, who's proficient, and who's exceeding grade level expectations. Continuing our growth from there, we updated our USM process. That is our universal screening meetings. So we use what we used to use map data as a universal screener. This year we've used iReady, and we've been very pleased with iReady as both a screener and as an instructional tool. And continuing to invest in our staff with our trainings in Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions like Do the Math Now, AVMR, Sonde, LLI, having a multiple tools at our resource and a multiple trained staff to make sure that we can try to find the right interventions to service our students. Then 21-22, we shifted our building SLO. Our building SLOs are our student learning objectives. What are our goals every single year as a building? And for a number of years, we were always focused on achievement, and we switched that focus to growth of all students. And through that small shift, we're obviously seeing greater achievement, but we're much more focused on all learners, because in the PLC process, you're looking at, okay, what do we do if they don't know something, and what do we do if they already know something? So there's a bigger emphasis on all of our students going through our system. And then coming out of the 21-22 school year, we had our highest school report card to date. We've been pretty much on a 10-year trajectory upwards with our data, and then last year having the highest school report card that we've had in school history. But we didn't stop there. We knew there were other areas that we wanted to lean into, and that was the addition of booster groups and flex time. Booster groups, simply put, was catching students right when the school year started. So rather than waiting until the end of September, October, after our universal screening meetings and looking at where students are at, we used our spring data and grabbed students right away in the fall and placed them in groups where we could front load content, making sure students could hit the ground running when the school year started. Flex time, our core classes are 90 minutes, but a lot of times when you're servicing Tier 2, Tier 3, or students in special education, depending on what they need, a lot of times they're having to be pulled from core classes. And we wanted to get away from any of our students missing core instruction, because a huge part of the PLC process is ensuring that all students are getting grade level standards and grade level instruction. And so flex time is pulling out a 20-30 minute chunk out of core classes where students are not missing instruction, but students are getting individualized instruction based on what they need in the classroom. And then again, continuing our staff trainings in our Tier 2 and Tier 3 strategies. So our universal screening process, our meetings are teacher-led. I think a huge part of our success is because of all the teacher leaders that we have in the building and the roles that they all take on. And these are very intentional meetings, looking at our universal screening data 3 times a year, and then looking at our classroom assessments routinely, and making determinations of if we see students that are below grade level, what do we do instructionally to catch them up? Where are we moving students in our PAW time for Tier 2 or Tier 3 services within our system? Part of servicing students is we looked at our staffing, and we're able to increase our homeroom sizes, which freed up additional teachers to deliver those interventions so that we could reach more students. And obviously these meetings, there's a lot of opportunities to celebrate the dismissal of students who were maybe in an intervention, got their 6 weeks or in 8 weeks of remediation, and then celebrating the success of them closing the achievement gap and getting to the grade level standard. And then lastly, fidelity checks. We have a lot of different interventions going on. Staff are continually being trained, but trying to take an active role in observing them doing those interventions to make sure they are implementing them to fidelity, that they are delivering that the intervention as intended. And then flex time and special ed schedules. I talked about not wanting students to miss grade level or core instruction. And one of the pieces we did with our special educators and our special ed students is making sure that we did the schedules in a way that our special educators had dedicated prep time to work with those core teachers. And we have specialized our special ed teachers in specific content areas where they are the experts and can work with their students in that specific content area. So even though we had some great success coming out of our last school report card, we felt there were still some areas that we could lean into with flex time and our special ed schedules and booster groups being new this year. I would say so far it's working. When we did we looked at our growth from fall to winter using our iReady data. We iReady test 3 times a year, fall, winter, spring. And so that top chart is the growth from fall to winter, and you can see Webster, our data is an outlier. It's exceptional in reading, highest growth, highest achievement from fall to spring. And in math, we're still leading the pack, not quite the highest data that we displayed in reading, but still leading the pack in math, showing great achievement and great growth from fall to winter. So obviously our hope is that we continue to see that growth from winter to the spring, and then eventually seeing this correlate over into the forward exam. It's a little bit more of a detailed snapshot. This is specifically for reading. You can see, we got a laser pointer here. All right. So you can see here, this is where our students were in the fall, and 35% of our kids in the fall, the beginning of the year, were mid or above grade level already. This is early on grade level. And then when you compare to the top, that is the winter data. So obviously we want to see our red and yellow decline, and we want to increase our green, which means we're increasing the amount of kids that are early on grade level or mid to above grade level. And then here's just a quick snapshot. You can see in each particular grade level what percentage of students are on grade level or past grade level. And interestingly, across all three grade levels in the winter, we were already at 72% of our students meeting grade level expectations. So again, if we see the same continued growth by the end of the year, we think we're doing a fantastic job of making sure all of our students are at or above grade level. Here we are in math. Again, wanting to increase our on and above grade level here in the green and decreasing our red and yellow. See a little bit more variance here in the data. 83%, which is outstanding for our sixth grade. In the winter, we're already at grade level or beyond. 70% in seventh grade, eighth grade at 60%. We're not alarmed by these numbers. I think the biggest factor is sixth grade piloted our new math curriculum for a whole year last year, and this year it's brand new for our seventh and eighth grade. So sixth grade has had a year under their belt with the new curriculum, but we definitely feel confident with IM, the curricular materials, and what we're seeing with students. So and our math data the last 2 years on the school report card for growth has been a perfect score of 100%. So we feel very confident that our spring scores will be where they normally are, if not higher. So through all of this work, summarizing 10, 11 years worth of work in a quick snapshot slideshow, we've gone through some pretty rigorous application processes when it comes to the Department of Public Instruction and the RTI Center and the PBIS network of Wisconsin. And you can see our growth over the years as we really started off focusing just on behavior and reading, and then over time continuing our growth in math. And moving along this continuum involves multiple staff trainings. You have to have the staff to support the data. You have to have the student growth to support these achievements. And interestingly, when COVID hit, while most of the nation took a dip in their data, we excelled. And a huge part of that was where we were at in the PLC journey. And when we had to go home in March of that year, we really had to focus, even virtually, on, okay, we're virtual, this is not ideal, what are going to be the most essential standards that we want our students to get in this remaining time in this very challenging learning environment. And it really forced our staff to dig in and do the work of essential standards and common assessments. And so coming out of COVID, focusing on these areas, we got the gold rating in all three of those areas, and we continued that in 21-22, and this year we'll be going for our third year in a row. So in 2021, we are one of 4 middle schools who earned that triple gold in those 3 content areas. We got it again last year, making us the only middle school in the state to earn it in 21-22, and we were the only school in the state to be back-to-back triple gold winners. And so we kept that momentum going with a rigorous PLC application to Solution Tree to be a model PLC school, and we just received that recognition back in February, which is a fantastic recognition. Could not be more proud of our staff. I think a couple of things that I want to highlight. First is teacher leadership. there's no way we could do this without the amazing staff members that we have and investing in them and putting them in positions to get trained and to excel and be leaders in their content area and within their teams. I think another key component is our mindset shifted when in the PLC process, that book we went through was learning by doing, and that's a mantra that we stay with. So basically everything for us is action research. We don't try something and then point fingers and cast blame and get upset about it. Everything is action research. We do something, what worked, what didn't work, and let's go back to the drawing board, tweak it, and do it again. And we do that in a way where our mentality, our collegiality is always there, because we know at the end of the day we're just doing what we think is best for our kids, and no one hits that out of the park every single time at the first at bat. So that mindset, I think, has been huge for our staff. I definitely want to thank Mr. Reiner, Dan Reiner, our associate principal, Nicole Ward, who has been with us for 3 years, right? 3 years now. And if you look at some of the changes that we've made in some of our systems, Nicole had a huge part in that when she came on board. So we thought we had a great system built, and every time we look to hire, we want to find a value add, and Nicole definitely has been a value add along with our whole student services department. So again, want to thank both of you for pleasure working with you two, and pleasure working with the staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony, and congratulations here to the hardworking staff and the families and the students and everything to make that possible. Thank you, Nicole, and thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Jared.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Too long, my computer shut down. All right. Okay, so that takes us to the consent agenda. Dr. Clark.
All right, with regard to the consent agenda, board members, I ask that you approve the minutes from the regular board meeting on March 15th, 2023, the budget and finance report, which includes the summary of account, check, register, check detail, and credit card transaction reports, and the personnel report. Mr. Farner, Director of Human Resources, will provide a brief overview of the personnel report.
Thank you. It's that time of the year. We're in full swing with the hiring season, so we have some resignations and contracts for your approval this evening. First, the resignations effective at the end of this year. Julie Nichols, high school teacher. Megan Wylipski, high school teacher. Ben Gauger, Parkview teacher. Caroline Fink, Thorson teacher. Benedict Behrens, Webster teacher. And Grace Prebeck, Webster teacher. And then we're already well on the way to replacing many of the resignations that we've had already, so we have these contracts for your approval this evening. Tony DeRosa, administrator contract, moving to the HR position. Tiffany Dahl, high school teacher. Diane Lassar, high school teacher. Lauren Downs, Webster teacher. Kate Schleif, Parkview teacher. And Megan Retzloff, Thorson educator. Ask for your approval on those.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Farner or Dr. Clark?
I do. As far as this particular, as it's noted in the agenda, is this one foul swoop of aye or no, or is this one that can be broken into pieces? I asked this for a specific reason. I haven't had the chance to review Mr. DeRosa's answers to WECAN for the new position, and I was not a board member while this process was going on, and the parents were not invited, understandably so, to the screening process. I understand it was including staff and board members were invited, but because I was not a part of that in any way, shape, or form, and I haven't had the opportunity to review his answers to the position itself, I'm not comfortable quite yet giving an aye on that note.
I don't think we've ever done a carve-out on the consent agenda, but I don't see why we couldn't.
No, there's no reason you can't.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm happy to abstain from this one and, move forward and have a chance to look at those answers after this meeting.
I guess that would be up to you. I mean, if you want to carve something out, and we can vote on everything other than that, there's no reason why we can't do that. Or you can abstain if you wish.
Let's, for the sake of time, I'll abstain from this one.
Okay. Any other thoughts, questions, motions?
I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And we've got one abstention, correct? Two abstentions. Okay, so Ms. Kincaid and Ms. Erickson are abstaining.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to highlight, again, as mentioned before, one of the positions the board just approved was our new Director of Human Resources, Tony DeRosa. This position became open when Conrad Farner took the superintendent position in Arrowhead. And Tony, would just give you a little background. Tony was one of 4 candidates we brought in to interview for the position. The first round of interviews was conducted with 2 teams. One team consisted of staff members, teachers, administrative assistants, and a board member. The other team consisted of building administrators and the Human Resources Department assistants. The second round of interviews was with all of the district directors, our communications coordinator, and our board president. As a result of the interview process, Tony emerged as the top candidate, and we are excited for the opportunity to work with Tony in his new role. We also will be posting for the new middle school principal in the morning, and more to come in that arena.
All right, thank you, Dr. Clark. Superintendent's report.
All right, for those of you who are counting, we have 7 weeks of school left. I don't know about you, but this school year has flown by for me. As I've said numerous times this year, the Cedarburg community continues to surprise me with their commitment to both our students' education and the community as a whole. This past Friday, I had the privilege to observe the culmination of the elementary Stuff the Bus campaign, where students from all 3 elementary schools brought in food items and small household cleaning and personal products to be donated to the Ozaki Food Alliance, formerly the Saukville Community Food Pantry. Students and families from the 3 schools donated 4,581.6 pounds of items, 200 pounds more than last year. It was great to see the student council members from each of the schools help load the moving van with items. Thank you to all of the students, parents, families, teachers, administrators, staff, and other community members who made this possible. Way to go, Cedarburg.
All right, now we've got item number 6, public comment. And I do have a couple of people who signed up in advance. We've got Jennifer Melvin and Nicole Schmidt. Do either or both of you still intend to make a public comment? Okay. Then I will read a very exciting statement before we begin. Start right here. Yep. Okay. Any district staff member, district resident, parent of a district student, or student enrolled in the district may comment during the public comment portion of a meeting per board policy 0167.3. For this meeting, the community may address the board during the public comment section of the meeting regarding topics within the legitimate jurisdiction of the board. Individuals making public comments are not immune from liability during public comment and can be held liable for defamation or false claims. In the past, the state attorney general issued guidance on how governmental bodies, such as school boards, should conduct the public comment portions of their meetings. This guidance was given to assist the governmental bodies in avoiding violations of the state's open meetings laws. The essence of the open meetings law guidance is that unless the topic brought forward to the board is publicly noticed, no significant discussion can be held on that item. Instead, the topic may be listed as an item on a future meeting agenda, whereby discussion could then be held. The reason for this Attorney General guidance is to ensure that all interested parties have equal opportunity and advance notice to participate in the discussions with the full board. Per Board Policy 0167.3, the board has the authority to determine if public comment may be taken, and if allowed, on what portion of the agenda comment will be received. Per School Board Policy 0144.2, the board will respect the confidentiality of information that is privileged under applicable laws. This includes, but is not limited to, information under current or imminent litigation and or student-specific information per Board Policy 8330. If your item is not listed on tonight's agenda and you want to have a discussion regarding the topic, you're encouraged to contact the district superintendent and request that your item be listed on a future meeting agenda for public comment. As always, you are also encouraged to contact board members outside of the meeting setting with your comments or concerns. Please note that board members are limited to public engagement via email as noted in Board Policy 0167.5. Please make your comments to the board. and not to any individuals in the audience. As per School Board Policy 0167.3, each statement made by a participant shall not exceed 3 minutes in duration. Please note that this is a public meeting, and we ask everyone to address one another with the courtesy and respect that you would like to receive in return. When you approach the microphone, please state your name and address for the record. Please state what topic you will be commenting upon. If you are under the age of 18 or are a student in Cedarburg schools, please only state your first name. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the district's website. Do I have a timer? There it is. Oh, good. All right, Brenda. Is everyone still awake? Okay. Go ahead.
My name is Jennifer Meldman. I live at 300 Bobolink Avenue, Grafton, Wisconsin, 53024. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm speaking regarding number 7A and B, regarding the policies that are going to be recommended to be passed that were discussed at the committee meeting, the policy committee meeting last week. I have some concerns regarding that. There were 14 policies that were passed that changed and removed language. The policies had to do with harassment, equal opportunity, access to counseling, a whole variety of things. And just to give a flavor for one, I'll just read like the school counseling services and academic career planning policy originally read, the developed plan will be adopted by the board and maintained by the district. Such a program shall be available to all students without regard to race, color, national origin, ancestry, creed, pregnancy, marital status, parental status, sexual orientation, sex, in parentheses, including transgender status, change of sex, or gender identity, close parentheses, physical or mental, emotional, or learning disability, race, color, religion, national origin, ancestry, creed, pregnancy, marital status, parental status, sexual orientation. Oh my gosh. I just made a terrible error. I'm reading like what you were taking out and replacing it with. Hopefully you're going to get the gist here. I'm so sorry. Basically, in regards to when we're talking about these programs being available, when it came to being without regard to sex, in parentheses it included transgender status, change of sex, or gender identity. And this was removed. And there are many policies, there were 14 policies actually that are being recommended by the policy committee that to be passed tonight that remove that kind of language and just leave the word sex there. And while sex can include those words, it leaves it in some ways up to interpretation. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because I'm not sure how many of you are aware, but Title IX, basically Title IX says that it prohibits discrimination based on sex in education programs and activities that receive federal financial assistance. I'm running out of time. The bottom line is the removal of this word, these words, can jeopardize providing these rights and opportunities to these different minority groups. And I'm concerned that if we remove them, we may not follow them diligently, in which case we're going to be in violation of Title IX, which could affect federal funding. And we certainly don't want to lose any of our federal funding. And we are also going to be released in May of 2023. They're releasing some new information about this policy. So I encourage you to wait to make a decision about these policies until that is released. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicole Schmidt, 1680 Swallow
We
Drive.
can't hear you. Can you step up to the microphone a little bit?
Nicole Schmidt, 1680 Swallow Drive.
You're okay? All right.
The very policies that are meant to protect students and staff have been revised to remove protection for specific characteristics. These revisions to anti-harassment, anti-hazing, and other protective policies have been sent here to the full board for approval tonight. The policy committee, consisting of 3 members, Mr. Creer, Ms. Strobel, and Ms. Charland, rushed through nearly 50 policies at their last meeting with little to no explanation for their proposed changes. Some of the recommendations on the agenda today propose the deletion of existing language from protective policies. What, or rather who, is removed from specific protections are listed as: number 1, including gender status, change of sex, sexual orientation, or gender identity. Number 2, including transgender status, change of sex, or gender identity. Other characteristics, such as race and religion, remain listed. But why has the committee gone out of their way to remove specific protection to those characteristics that I listed and not others? There are families who contacted me who are unable to speak out because their children are on that list proposed tonight to be removed from protection. These families cannot risk outing their identities, considering their children could be erased from policies that are meant to protect them. These are their children they want protected. This is reminiscent of how the school board erased the mural and its message of love and acceptance. Our students and staff deserve dignity, respect, and to be included in policies that are meant to provide protection from harm. The recommendation to remove them from protection is already harmful enough. I am requesting to the board that you not approve the policies listed in the agenda recommendations A and B.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Okay, then we will move on to the next item, which is recommendations. Dr. Clark.
Yeah, this evening we have 4 sets of recommendations. The first set of recommendations consists of policies which were forwarded to the full board by the policy committee.
So I would like to address one thing I heard from Nicole Schmidt. And just to assure you and anyone else who's paying attention or listening to this, is that nobody is being removed from any protection. These changes are being made to a number of, or the recommended changes are being made to a number of policies, and the only purpose for that is to align the language with the language of the Wisconsin statutes. So where a policy is designed to implement or refer to or effectuate a specific statute, we're just trying to make sure that the language tracks the statute. I did hear from somebody in an email who was concerned about specifically about the anti-hazing policy, I think it was, where that specific wording is changed in the definition of a protected class. So we're recommending to make the definition of a protected class be the same as the Wisconsin statute. That's what the change would do. If a group isn't in a protected class, you go to the next paragraph. The next paragraph protects people from, all people, from the hazing and whatnot. And if you go to it's just that it's under the bullying statute or bullying policy instead of a discrimination policy. If you go to the bullying policy and you see what's prohibited, that's where you'll see the language about the subjects of bullying that are prohibited. And those include the topics of transgender, gender identity, things like that. It's not permitted, and we're not changing the policy to allow anybody to be targeted. It's just a change to reflect, to align the language precisely with the Wisconsin statute. And the reason you want to do that, in my opinion, my perspective, is that when you have a statute, that's kind of the beginning of the law on it. What happens then is courts interpret the statute, and a body of law gets built up around the statute. If your language tracks the statute, you can look at that body of law and you can determine, okay, you can look at a specific situation and predict whether you're in compliance or not. If your language deviates from the statute, you have less ability to use the body of law or to predict using the body of law whether you're in compliance with the law or not. So it's just in my mind, it's a technical best practice. And I'm sorry it became such a big issue, but as they say, I don't think it is an issue. I don't think it changes anything. That was the one that got attention. I don't know if there are any other questions or concerns that anyone has. Oh, well, no, I was talking to the board. And public comment is over, I'm sorry.
I do have several questions in regards to these policies. I understand what you are stating, Mr. Creer. I believe that we are not in any kind of danger zone of leaving the language as is, so that it is viewable for parents should they have any questions about it. It's in several policies. It's easy to find. I agree with you that it's in the bullying portion. However, not many parents at this point know how to navigate to find that section unless they are explicitly told how to do that. So I would prefer to see that language remain as is. Generally speaking, I won't be going through a massive amount of papers, but you know that we have on the docket today our definitions portion of the policies, and I was attempting to see if we have in the definitions protected classes listed, because that's the first thing that comes up, and unfortunately my page ends at O, so I literally can't see. So if we have the ability at the table to see if in definitions protected classes is listed right away, that would be helpful in my view. And then there are policies that are unrelated to this specific verbiage, proposed verbiage change that I do have questions about that were not addressed in any capacity at the policy committee meeting.
Okay,
So-
go ahead, ask. Yeah, we can just see if we can help you.
Power through. Remind me, am I allowed to ask Brenda questions as she's,
You can ask me, and if I
Perfect.
need to turn her.
is someone able to, at the table, check and see if protected classes is listed in the definitions portion of the policy manual?
I'm trying to look that up right now.
Perfect. Okay, so moving on. This isn't in a specific order, but for our days of, let's see, policy 2221, special observance days, I'd like just a clarification on this. We have several that are X'd out, and my understanding as I read this, as I go back to the statute, we're following through with several of these days. We haven't removed Bullying Awareness Day. To me, it looks like it's just a format change, with the exception of November 11th, which is listed as Armistice Day in our board docs, but is listed state statute as Veterans Day. And I thought it was Veterans Day last year as well. So that would be one that I would like to have conversation about adding, so, you know, the language so that it's Veterans/Armistice Day, if that's amenable to others. So that is one that did not receive discussion. And
Oh, okay, hang on just a second then, because let's address that one first, because that was a Neola change, as I recall. And I don't think we even asked what and I'm looking at you, Chair, and I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't remember that specifically from the policy committee meeting.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up too, because those days are
they're
dictated
designated
by
to
the
change. The only difference
state.
is we have ours listed as Armistice, and it's Veterans Day currently on the state statute. And I thought it was listed as Veterans Day last year. I know that November 11th is a big one for our community, so I want to make sure we have it right.
September, yeah, no problem. Brenda, any thoughts on that?
So if it would be one where I would like to see that change to volunteer / Armistice Day. I think both are important. I think one is perhaps a little bit harder to understand for our younger students. And again, Veterans Day is a big one for our district.
Again, I think that the name of those and those dates selected is by state statute. That's not district selection.
Right. What I'm saying is, when I looked at the state statute, it's not listed as Armistice Day. I saw it listed as Veterans Day. So I'm saying that we have it as Armistice. So that's one. If you'd like me to continue with a few others, I know we have, I don't want to ruin anybody's anything.
You
There
know,
were
what we
just
could
several
do is,
policies that didn't get discussion.
Yeah, we could try and find the policies that she has questions on, or anybody has questions on, pull them out. You could, if you want to do consent on all the rest, then we could do each one individually.
I do have a list of the ones I had questions on, so I'm able to make a motion to that effect if it's helpful to
How
others.
long is your list?
It is, uh, 20 of the 48, I would say. I think 2 have been covered.
All right. I don't know if it's going to make a difference then. Why don't we keep talking?
Okay.
And then we can, if we come across some that we think need further discussion, that we can, let's see if we can clarify any of those and put them
Sure.
onto the done pile.
Sure,
And
that'd be
then-
great.
And then let's do that as a first round.
Perfect, that'd be great.
Okay.
So, the date, so that last one I mentioned is 2221, Special Observance Days. The next ones are any of the policies that discuss the use of tobacco, nicotine, and related products by students or staff, and specifically with the language, this specifically includes marijuana and hemp plant-derived substances, whether or not legally sold in Wisconsin, including CBD products, Delta-8 THC, Delta-9 THC, or any other variation thereof. Is that a Neola?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
That one I think was done to comply with whatever the current statutory updates were. It's my understanding.
Okay. My one question on this is if we have students that use CBD products for epilepsy management, and if we have anything built into our policies for exceptions regarding that.
That's, yeah, probably. Yeah.
So there's always a health plan. This is primarily targeting vaping.
Okay,
But anything in a health plan would again, an approved health plan is acceptable.
thank you.
Is that what we're good on?
I think so for the time being, yep. And then I unfortunately don't have which policy this is, but it goes over our student trips, extended travel, foreign travel, general trip provisions. And the items I and J, specifically for J, for overnight trips, student room assignments will be established prior to the trip and approved by the principal. Room assignments shall only consist of students of the same biological sex. Is that practice at present? Is that what we're doing right now, or is that a change to practice?
That's current practice.
Okay, thank you.
We good with that one?
Yep, and then I just have a couple more here.
Okay.
For policies, we had a policy that was basically split in two, and I understand that the patriotic activities and observations, as well as the, basically we had lumped in the patriotic activities and observances, as well as religious expressions of religion. And I'm wondering, the wording that is for the observance of the flag, there's a kind of a sentence at the end of it that says it's at the discretion, I'm paraphrasing, I apologize again. I will hopefully not have to do all this in one day, but there's a sentence that was added that states that a moment of silence may be taken at the discretion of a principal or superintendent. And I don't have an issue with this necessarily in theory. However, I did have some questions as to whether the Pledge of Allegiance is said during summer academy. I don't know if we got an answer on that. Okay. So my thought process with that specifically is Summer Academy starts on June 19th, which is Juneteenth, which for several people is important. For others I won't get into that, but I would like to have a bit more clarity on what is considered a moment of silence worthy, I guess, to avoid any unnecessary complaints filed against our principals or our superintendent. It's my understanding that this particular wording was a choice that Neola offered. If the current board members would be able to maybe confirm that or not, that would be helpful.
Which policy number is this?
I think it's 8800, or right around there.
Yep, at the very bottom of 8802.
Thank you, yep.
This is a Neola thing, correct?
And that it was a
Yeah.
Neola
So,
recommendation.
but what, let's see, so 88, which one? 8802.
8802.
Oops,
What's the specific question that we're looking at? I have the policy pulled up here.
My
But I
under-
don't- is
Yeah,
there a
sure.
line?
So my understanding is that last sentence or two sentences was a choice offered by Neola to either add it or not add it. And I'm looking for confirmation on whether that's the case. I know that amendments to policies can be from administration, from Neola, board member input, and it's not clear to me in reading through these which that is.
It was, it was a recommendation from Neola, which was an option.
So, okay, 8802.
So which was the option? Would you mind just clarifying that a little bit? A recommendation from Neola with an option to either have it or not have it?
They placed it as an option.
Okay.
But you could have, you can choose, kind of like anything in Neola, you can always not do their recommendations.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And I guess, and to kind of reiterate Elizabeth's question, I guess I don't understand what the question is. Like what?
Would you like it, sorry, would you like it removed?
Without being able to kind of talk, what I would really appreciate is just having a better understanding of what would constitute those moments of silence. Because if it's at the discretion of our principals and our superintendent, and there's something that perhaps for our younger kids, something major is going on, and it's being heard first from your principal rather than your parent, I would like some
Sure.
clarification on what is considered moment worthy.
No, I
That's
appreciate that.
covered in the guide, because that's kind of outside the board.
Yeah, we would, so if the board makes an approval, then we would adjust the administrative guidelines.
Thank you,
But
okay.
just in anticipation of that, generally speaking, don't traditionally do moments of silence in an elementary school, for the same reason that you brought up there. Don't want to be for kids that aren't there, we don't necessarily want to be the first time they hear about it. In the past, that has traditionally been in middle school and high school. The September 11th would have been a great example.
Sure.
Often reserved for times of national tragedy.
So I guess it would be my preference then that that's more explicitly stated in the policy. And then reflected in the administrative guidelines, that it's more appropriate, that it's done in our middle and high school. I'm open to hearing other thoughts, of course. It's just a portion that was not in our policies before. And I hesitate on it because I can see a few potential issues with it.
So are you stating that it's important for the parents to know before they do it at the school? Is that your issue on that? 'Cause-
I think that the vagueness of the wording in just saying that it's at the discretion of the, again, I can't find everything right here, so if you guys have it open on the screens, that's wonderful. If someone doesn't mind just repeating what it says.
So I can read it. It says, "The
Thank you.
district may offer students and staff a moment of silence to commemorate a significant event that has significant impact on the community. The decision to offer a moment of silence shall be the building principal's and/or the superintendent's decision." So this is something where the board is basically saying, okay, we can permit these, and whether to do it or not is up to the building principal and/or the superintendent. There might be other policies, and there might be guidelines. So all the policies have guidelines attached to them.
Sure, I understand
Yeah,
that, and I didn't
so-
see anything regarding this.
Yeah.
This is new language.
Well, because it might depend on the subject matter. I don't know, Jared, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's where, it would depend on the subject matter and what has occurred. And again, like I said, generally for national tragedies is where I've used it in the past in other districts.
So would we want to add the language, national tragedies, to make it clearer?
I'll be honest, in a scenario like this, I just as soon remove it. Again, it gets a little challenging determining what individuals think is a tragedy and not. And so, it's better to just not have it in there instead of being second guessed. Part of the reason it was at the discretion of the principal or the superintendent is because there's lots of second guessing that goes on. And it's just a matter of how we live in our society. And so, again, if there's, I would instead of you having it more explicit, I would just, oh man, I can't speak. I would prefer to have it out.
So was that policy 8802?
Correct.
But if we have it out, if say, 9/11 was a horrific tragedy for our country, would we be allowed to have a moment of silence at the schools if that was out?
Yeah, there's nothing that prohibits it.
It's up to the principal or superintendent.
Yeah.
If this whole statement is out?
No, if this remains.
Right.
Then it's up to the.
Right, but I'm saying if it was out, are we talking whether to keep it in or take it out?
Well, yeah, I think what we're saying is that it might be simpler to take it out of this particular policy, because it would be covered in a myriad of other ones. Is what
Well,
you're
I
saying?
don't think
There's
it is covered in other ones. I don't remember seeing a moment of silence mentioned in another
Yeah,
policy.
I think this is the only place in any of the board policy that I've seen or that I remember where a moment of silence is mentioned.
Right, because it's
Yeah.
not prohibited anywhere, and it's
Correct.
just, and this would just kind of reflect what we're doing currently and what we've always done.
Correct. Again, and once, this is a brand-new policy, so there are no guidelines. Once the policy is approved, then the administrative team gets together and puts together guidelines, which everybody can look at. That's certainly where we can take comment and suggestion, and if we need to make some clarifications, it's easier to do it in there.
Maybe we could, if there are still objections or concerns, maybe what we could do is carve this one out and table it for further, I don't know what.
I was good with it as is. I
Yeah.
attended the policy committee meeting. It's what our current standard is. There's a number of different policies where specific decisions are given to the deference of the principal or the superintendent. I'm good leaving it in there.
Yeah.
I am as well.
I guess I would like to see what the administration has in mind as far as how they would structure their policy before approving.
Okay, so we'll carve that one out too then. So we've got 2221 and 8802 that we're carving out, right? And I want you,
Yes,
your
I
list
think,
coming.
I think the other two that I had noticed really were more specific with the potential use of a student or staff member needing to use a CBD product in any kind of emergency situation or for their daily health care. And it sounds like we do have a plan in place for that to be allowed. So I'm good with that. It sounds like it's standard practice for 2340. And there was the last one was 2240. The if you're able to pull that one up, it has to do with parental notification being provided in advance. I believe that had to do with controversial issues in the classroom. And I would just like a bit of clarification. I know this was discussed during the policy committee, but I didn't feel there was a necessary solid next step on how that is done. And the language as it is right now is a bit too vague for my preference.
Okay, so what you're referring to is policy number 2240. There's a change in where it states that when controversial issues have not been specified in the course of study, the board will permit the instructional use of only those issues which have been approved by the principal. And we're adding to that sentence. The proposal is to add to that sentence, and parental notification has been provided in advance. And that's the one that you're objecting to that?
I'm only objecting to it in the sense that there's not specifics on that. I didn't see in the administrative guidelines necessarily a tie to that on how it would be done, and I could potentially see a parent not receiving a timely enough notice of something and filing a complaint, and this language doesn't necessarily, in my view, protect the staff.
Yeah, we did cover this a little bit at the
We did.
at the meeting, and I think where we landed was what were the normal procedures by email, I think, by the teacher, right?
Correct.
And is that in any kind of guideline?
Not yet. I don't adjust guidelines until
Yes.
after the board approves the policy.
So you would probably do that.
Correct. As soon as the policy is approved, then we update the guidelines.
Okay.
So from my perspective, if we're stating in a policy and trying to match it as accurately to the administrative guidelines as possible, having the language just be and parental notification has been provided in advance, what's the expectation there? If a lesson is being taught on Friday, do parents need to know at a certain time? 48 hours, 24 hours? What's the thought process there? Or is it truly up to whatever comes across the desk with the administrative guidelines and the view of what that means with this language?
We did talk about that, and I think we were giving, saying that it was really up to the principal, that it was going to be a rare occurrence, I believe.
Correct. This doesn't happen frequently. Again, my thought would be it's got to get approved by the principal, and then it goes from there. So, a minimum of 24 hours would be appropriate. Again, I've been looking at and talking to my principals. None of them could remember the last time that they've approved or anything's been brought to them for approval in this.
Okay.
Most everything that we do is already taken care of in the curriculum ahead of time. So this is something that the district has generally avoided.
Okay. I would either, if it's not something that occurs on a frequent basis, which again, everyone has different ideas about that, but if there's language to the effect of on the rare occurrence of, et cetera, parents may be given, or parents shall be provided notice in advance, I would feel more comfortable with that, so that it's a little bit more clear that this isn't something that is expected to happen often, and this policy be one that's leaned upon for complaints, basically. So if that means potentially tabling it along with the others, so that language can be potentially amended,
Well,
I'm not sure.
I think there are a couple of different things here. So one is if we table something, it means we're not going to vote on it tonight. If we're carving it out of the list of the ones that you would like to approve, then that's kind of what I was doing
Sure.
right now, is kind of making your carve-out list. I'm really comfortable with this language. We did have some discussion about it in the policy committee meeting about, what about those parents who don't read their email and stuff like that? And it's like, well, I don't know. But I think to Jared's point, it's a rare thing, And it would be almost dependent on the situation, I would think, but you're going to put together, you would be putting together guidelines that would
Correct.
implement the policy as it's written. I'm comfortable with it.
Well, in the policy, correct me if I'm wrong, we're just adding and parental notification has been provided in advance,
Correct.
right? So really, the staff had permission before this to cover these controversial issues without notifying the parents in advance, right?
Right.
So I believe we're helping parents in providing this language. So I'm very comfortable with this addition.
I am as well. I don't see it necessary to add the language in the rare occurrence and then have what's written in the policy. I mean, we have policies here for the rare occurrences, so to go through all the policies and say, anytime that there's something that's a rare occurrence, we're going to add that, that's not really something I would be advocating for today. I support the language as written in the policy.
All right. So do you want us to carve that out for you?
I would agree in carving it out. It's important for parents to be notified. And as was said, parents don't regularly always check their emails. So I would be in favor of adding at minimum 24 hours in advance so that it's not the night before or the morning of, so that parents will have advance notice. And that gives us a timeline to follow just in case there are complaints.
Yeah, and we kind of talked through that at the policy committee meeting, and as I recall, I don't want to put you on the spot here, Dr. Clark, but I think there were some potential issues, because I think we talked about that, like what do you do as like a more solid time frame, and because that's a good idea, you know, if we can do that, how do we specify? And it seemed like it was kind of hard to do, if not impossible, because of the potential situation. I don't recall, I don't want to put words in
Yeah,
your mouth.
no, I agree. Again, I think this is one of those areas where I think in the administrative guidelines, we can put language in there that would be, this is what we would normally do. Again, you can never, you're never entirely sure what all is going to go on in the world, but certainly provide that in guidelines.
Would you see any issue with adding something like 24 hours notice or something like that? Because advance, we talked about this in the meeting, is kind of vague.
Yeah. No,
What
I'm
kind of
looking at
list
a couple of my principals who are, they'd be fine with that.
Yeah. Okay, what does everyone else think about that? Any other thoughts
So it's
on-
adding at a minimum of 24 hours
Yeah.
notice? It's fine.
I think for me, really what it comes down to is when the onus is placed specifically on the principal and the superintendent, I feel like if there's an expectation that information is going to get to parents in a frame of, time frame, that's a helpful guideline. That's where I personally, I think that would be helpful looking forward.
So then we could change the language to be,
I would ask for 48 hours rather than 24 for those who may not get to their emails.
so is that an issue now? Is that a possibility? Because, well, I guess it's such a rare,
It's such a rare, I mean, sure, we could do that. I mean, it would just happen 2 days later. Again, it's not something that we would hope to ever be doing, actually.
yep, okay. Any thoughts, anyone?
And for what it's worth, I understand that, but I also, that's my feedback.
So then so on 22, does anyone have an objection to the 48 instead of 24 hours? Sound like that?
Yeah.
Okay, so if we change this addition to be, and parental notification has been provided at least 48 hours in advance. Everyone
Yep, that'll
good
work.
with that? Okay, so then we'll,
Got
okay.
thumbs
so
up
we'll-
from Brenda.
That one is as amended, okay. And then, so we'll take that off of the carve-out list. Okay,
And then we would just be back to I counted 14 policies as well. So looping back, did anyone have a chance to look at definitions?
Yeah, it is not in there.
Okay.
Protected classes is not included in the definitions.
right, it's defined in the statutes.
Right.
Before we loop back, I do have a comment to make on a policy that's not related to protected classes definition. 7544, which is use of social media. It is suggested that the word guardians be removed. I suggest it remain because there are parents who do not have guardianship of their children.
So where is this? Can you maybe, oh, there we go, I see, okay.
Which one is it?
Is this, it's
7544.
7544, second paragraph. That's a Neola change, I believe. Do you remember why they did that? No.
I think that was, if you're going back in definitions, that may have been one where they adjusted the wording for parents to include guardians.
maybe
but
it's
I don't
defined.
know that it goes into the
Okay.
specifics
Let's
of
check.
what Ms. Erickson noted.
Let me check.
I have the definition for parent up here. It says the natural or adoptive parent or the party designated by the courts as the legal guardian, custodian, or surrogate of a student. Both parents will be considered to have equal rights unless a court of law decrees otherwise.
Okay, so that's why the change is there, just to track the definition.
Okay.
So
I'm
I
fine
think we
with
should
that
be
then.
okay with that, yeah, okay. All right, and then, so what I've got from you, Connie, is number 2221 and number 8802. And then you've got a list of 14 others, is
Yeah,
that
so
correct?
the ones that were mentioned in public comment that have all of the removal of the language, let me pull one up
I'm
here.
going to need you to, give us a list so we have.
Yep, I have it. Give
Okay.
me just a minute. I wrote it out. So any of the ones that, so I'm just going to go through the numbers.
Yes.
And then I'll look for the wording here. So policy 0145, 1422, 1662, 2260, 2411, 2421, 2510, 2521, 3122, 3362, 4122, 4362, 5516, 8500. And then I have a note for 5730, if anyone's able to pull that up. That may be one as well that had it. But for sure, the ones I listed that have the language on there, the traits of sex, parentheses, including gender status, change of sex or gender identity, and parentheses, race, color, national origin, religion, creed, ancestry, marital or parental status, sexual orientation, or physical, mental, emotional, or learning disability, or any other characteristic protected by federal or state civil rights laws. So each of those have that language in it. And,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so then, if somebody, so I guess maybe, well, let me do it. Let me move that we approve all the recommended changes with the, to the following, to all the policies presented with the exception of the following. 2221, 8802, 0145, 1422, 1662, 2260, 2411, 2421, 2510, 2521, 3122, 3362, 4122, 4362, 5516, 5730, and 8500,
And I apologize, there's one other, 5517.
and 5517 as well. All right, so
And why are we pulling all of those out?
we're going to vote on those separately.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm making a motion currently on, I'll accept those, and I'm going to add that we approve 2240 as amended to provide for the minimum of 48 hours. And then we'll take a second motion on the remaining, on those carved out policies.
So 8802, which is the patriotic activities and observances, are we voting on that or no?
Not currently. We're gonna, I've carved that one out. We might vote on that if someone makes a motion after this one is.
We can to vote on
Yeah.
that separately?
Yes. Yeah, we're carving, yeah, because,
Thank you.
yeah. So I made a motion,
I would second.
and we've got a second. Okay. Any further discussion in the meantime?
Can you just clarify, is your motion to pass all but the ones you listed, correct? Thank
Yep,
you.
Yep, and then 2240 as amended.
Correct,
To
yep.
provide for minimum 48 hours. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Now we've got these additional policies. 01, I'm not going to read them again. The list we just carved out, including 2221 and 8802. And then, I'm going to read them all. I'm sorry, I'm going to do this the right way. I'm going to make a motion that we approve as presented, as recommended, the following policies: 0145, 1422, 1662, 2260, 2411, 2421, 2510, 2521, 3122, 3362, 4122, 4362, 5516, 5517, 5730, 8500, 2221, and 8802.
Is it 2221 or 2212?
I'm sorry?
Was it 2221 or 2212?
2221.
Thank you.
Did I say 2221?
You did. I wrote it incorrectly.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion to approve those as recommended.
I will second that.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I have a question. Being that this was not a recommendation by Neola or the administration, and that keeping the language doesn't harm anyone, but obviously removing it could be sending a message, what's the justification, and were the school psychologists contacted about this possible change and the ramifications it could have, being that those are not specifically laid out?
Well, I think I explained the rationale earlier, just to align specifically with the statute. So that's the rationale. I don't have any idea whether the school psychologists were consulted about the statutory language. I don't know.
No, they were not.
Okay. All right, so I got a motion and a second. Further conversation?
I would make a motion to table these items back to the policy committee so that the school psychologist can be consulted.
There's already a motion on the table that has to be voted up or down before another one can be made.
So I got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
All right, motion carries 4-2. What's next here? Contractual agreement, Dr. Clark.
All right, the next recommendation is to approve the 2023-24 CISA 1 contractual agreement. And I would need a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the CISA contract.
I would second that motion.
All right, got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this one? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, motion carries, passes unanimously.
Okay, the third recommendation is to approve the 2023-24 66.0301 agreement for cooperative team consultant services for Jen Townsend with the Elmbrook School District.
make a motion.
I'll second.
I do have some further questions on this one. I know that this one came with kind of a large cost to the district, and it just got me thinking a little bit about it, and I'm wondering if you could explain a little bit about, like, what is delivered at each, you know, is there more at elementary, more at high school, and how does it work? And I'm also curious to know, like, what is the game plan as far as how many years are we looking to do this? Are we looking to have staff, you know, kind of bring her in for training and then have staff kind of take on that role, or how is this going to
Sure.
work?
I'm going to ask Alan to go up and explain that a little more detail. I will tell you that the original plan was a 3-year plan. As we continue to work to implement PLCs and the effective, to be an effective institution, just as you saw with Tony mentioned at the middle school. This would be, next year would be the 2nd year of that plan.
So it is, so Alan Groth, Director of Curriculum and Instruction, and I have primary oversight over the consultants' work here in the system. So each school gets 5 days. So 5 days spread out throughout the year. So 5 for all elementary schools, 5 for the middle school, and 5 for the high school. And the idea is that by the time we come to the end of 3 years, we'll have moved through 3 cohorts or teams, really building the skill set and the strategies that have been taught by the consultant and being able to replicate those independent of her support. So we've done a really thorough first year. I attend all the debriefs, so every time she meets at a school and works with teachers and the instructional coaches or the principal, then they do a debrief at the end of the day. I'm present for those and listen in on the conversations and just see the growth that's occurring. Growth with a W, my last name's Groth. See the growth in the see the growth occurring within individuals at each school and overall the capacity of the system. So we're thrilled at the work that's occurring.
And this is for a 1 year, and then we would re-up it again the 3rd year if we so desire.
Correct. It would come back to the board again.
Any other comment?
And is there kind of a plan to, like, when these 3 years are over with, is this something staff will continue to implement with, you know, within the?
Absolutely, you are correct. Yep. So I was reviewing. So we do an annual it's a professional learning community survey to each of the schools that's personalized for the school, and there's probably at least a dozen characteristics that we're looking to see grow and develop at the schools. So this work actually finds its way through that survey, so we can see the progress that's occurring. That's insights for the school leadership teams and the principals, so they will continue to support their teachers in the implementation of everything that's learned. So it's not something that is to be assumed that it will just drift away. It's something that we want embedded in the system. And I think when you listen to Tony DeRosa share the story, really, the learning story at Webster, this is something that we want deep in the organization. We want, if you're a teacher, you don't work in isolation. There are other professionals in the school system that are often in classrooms supporting students that are in the classroom. So we want to really deepen the relationship between paraprofessionals, special education teachers, regular education teachers, as they serve all students in the system. So these practices are really important and something that we really stand behind to really for the success of all of our families' children.
Did, last year, when Jen Townsend came in, did they split up 5 days for the elementary school, 5 days for the middle school, and 5 days for the high school? Was that the same?
So last year's contract was slightly different, so the prior calendar year. So some of her services, she has a rich, wide background and was doing a lot of autism support in our system. So the professional services were through that particular area. So not to say that some of the services that we're seeing this year in particular hadn't occurred, but those services plus the coaching that occurred last year as well.
Okay. Are you gathering like feedback from administrators, staff on like how well it's going at each level? Like I wonder if there's like more value in doing more with her at the elementary and middle school level and maybe a little bit less value at the high school. Have you considered switching the days or maybe getting feedback mid-year and adjusting as needed, or are we like locked in to the 5 days at the high school?
That's a great question. So the administrative team, we did debriefs with elementary, middle school, and high school. And Tony DeRosa, he's here. He went to the elementary. He also had middle school with the high school. So we tried to capture their preferences in the planning, keeping the commitment to the 5 days to each school. We will do a survey of all cohort participants, including the administrative team. So they'll provide us insights on things that went well, things that we might want to tweak or adjust for the next calendar year. But those debriefs that have occurred actually brought all of that right to the table in just conversation. But the intention is that there will be a survey so that every teacher who is in the cohort, that their voice is heard as well. So the high school equivalently as important as elementary. So think about the content that students are learning inside the high school courses here. When you see more professionals coming into classrooms, they come here, they come at the middle school, and they come at the elementary school. So teachers working together with other professionals to help the students in the classroom occurs at every single level. And so these practices that Jen Townsend is teaching is for everyone. So it doesn't you could take it to the collegiate level, to be frank. So it's the refined, us working together to help every single student in that classroom. So.
And those surveys, are those done anonymously with the feedback, or is that like, with your name on it so that the principal and you and Dr. Clark see that?
That's a great question. Generally, our surveys are anonymous, but they are segmented by school, so that we can at least provide insights to the school. And this information we summarize and then send back out to those who took the survey so they can see trends from their colleagues as well. So, and I should say that at a recent PD day, we did bring elementary teachers who participated in the cohorts this year and secondary together, and they debriefed together. So we've been doing lots of feedback loops around this work, so we really value everyone's voices and just looking for different ways to gather their feelings and professional opinions on the work. So, but the survey will wrap the year up, and we will summarize that and get that back out to everyone, and it will be anonymous.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, thoughts?
I appreciated there was a bit of a summary sent via email for questions that were asked by different board members, I believe, on this specific topic, not by name, just questions that were asked. And our superintendent's responses to each of those questions was helpful to read. I recognize I made a pretty quick motion. I remember this item from last year, so I'm comfortable making that motion again, given everything that was shared in that email and the additional questions for clarification that were asked this evening.
Anything else? All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
All right, the last
Thank you, Alan.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. The last recommendation is for the acceptance of donations to the district. The first donation is from Randy Groth for $10,000 to support the Cedarburg High School robotics program. The second set of donations are in support of the Cedarburg High School softball and baseball turf project. $2,500 from Clear Cut Print Solutions Incorporated, $2,000 from Gulick and Sons Tree Service LLC, and $2,000 from Sharon Nedoma. That is a total of $16,500 for the month of April.
Okay. So we'll need a motion to accept the donations.
I would make a motion to accept the donations.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion, questions?
Would you mind reading just that first one again?
Yeah, the first
description of
donation
it?
for Randy Groth for $10,000 to support the Cedarburg High School robotics
The
program.
robotics, thank you.
Anything else? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
And I just to sum that all up, so far for this school year, the board has approved $580,574.02 in donations.
That's fantastic. We have a very generous community. Thank you. It's unbelievable. All right, so now, curriculum reports, okay. Sorry, committee reports. Curriculum committee is number one, and because Rick's not here, I'll cover that. In the curriculum committee, we basically dealt with three issues. One was we started a review of our environmental, AP Environmental Science textbook. The text is out of date, and So we're reviewing that. That's probably going to be up on May 11th for approval. We had an update on our math assessment data, and I think Ellen, was that elementary only or?
Elementary, middle school.
Yeah, in middle, okay, elementary, middle, and things are trending good. You saw some of that earlier with Mr. DeRosa. And then we've been discussing in curriculum committee quite a bit about the English language arts, especially in elementary, and we've kind of trying to improve that program. And to that end, we are going to be running a pilot program in the fall to try and have a more comprehensive program. So that's in the works. Did I get that right? It's in the fall, right?
Yep, correct.
Yep. Okay. Buildings and Grounds Committee.
Well, I guess since Kevin is not here to do it, I'll go over a couple of things we talked about. We got an update on the West Lawn Elementary School roof. Also information about the summer work that's going to be done. We also talked about an inclusive Parkview playground. And you can refresh my memory. Was that just kind of informational only?
Yeah, informational, let you know the work that we're gathering from prices and what it will consist of.
Okay. And then we also had an overview of cybersecurity recommendation. That's always an important.
No, I think you covered
Okay.
it.
Policy Committee, that's me, and we covered all that already.
Can I ask a quick question for the curriculum committee meeting for the pilot program? Was that, what grade specifically? Is it all grades or a
It's in
subset?
all.
Kinder
Elementary,
through
middle
8.
school.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so now I will take a motion to adjourn into executive session to, I have to read this, deliberate or negotiate the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons pursuant to 19.851E of the Wisconsin statutes. Strategy/planning regarding upcoming negotiations with Cedarburg Education Association. And then, and to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility pursuant to 19.851C of the Wisconsin statutes. Student service staffing is under that one. And then we will reconvene into open session where it is anticipate that we may take action to approve, well, let's see, take action on one more of the executive session items and to approve the special board meeting minutes from April 11th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nope. All right. We are adjourned into executive session. Thank you, everybody.